Greetings, everybody. How are you doing today? We're going to be reading from the FYC, or the For Your Consideration, from the second chapter of One Being Loves a Warrior, Becoming the Warrior of Compassion Within. And we're reading from Spirituality and the Larger Self. You may have seen the introduction already. Now we're going to be reading the For Your Consideration section for you to listen to. Decide if you want to believe it or not, and then either adopt the lessons or let it go. You see, what we're trying to do is create a way for you to be free from any type of conditioning that you have received from this society. All of the specificities, all of the little groups that you've been locked into that help diminish the understanding of your true self and make you loyal sometimes to people who really don't have your best interest at heart. So if you are a bold person, the one who wants to stand forth and to return to the greatness that you had when you entered into this world, this course is for you. If not, just go away. No mean comments. No mean responses. Because those things just are embarrassing to who you are. Just be an adult and go away. So we begin with For Your Consideration. When I was young, my parents often spoke of education. When my father was young, he had to drop out of school to work in the fields. He had to learn to read by himself and work hard all of his life. This taught him the importance of education. In my family, the word of education could have been used in place of salvation. For most poor African Americans and immigrants, education was the key to success. It was the only hopeful way of obtaining the American dream for those who started out with nothing. Now, however, general education needs have changed. Our education system does not seem to be keeping up with what is required to become a success in our society. In special schools for the most affluent of our society, children are taught the art of thinking and are provided a better education, one suited to the new millennium. The ability to think and the application of knowledge is more important in real life situations than just giving back crammed in information. The process of education should inspire the student to compare contrasting ideas and to develop his or her own. It is important for the student to become creative, imaginative, and pliable so that he or she can apply knowledge in various settings and in new and exciting ways. Critical thinking, therefore, is something very necessary for ultimate success. Most private and public schools, however, do not foster critical thinking anymore. Most public and private school systems still work with an early 1900s model of teaching that was developed during the Industrial Revolution to prepare individuals to work in factories and to be obedient members of society. One person in the classroom who represents the system usually has all of the knowledge and passes it out to those who can receive it. As Bella Bethany says in From Power to Partnership, kids get an assembly line education when they are 5 or 6 years old, and then they are moved along as if they are machine parts, like those they will one day produce. If they cannot perform as dictated by the system, they will fall off, just like products, or sometimes thrown off the assembly line because they are no good. And that is the end of her quote. Students sit in chairs, lined up in rows, They either read or take notes to absorb whatever knowledge is provided them without ever questioning the veracity of the knowledge. They are marked according to their ability to parrot it and on their ability to obey the rules of behavior given to them by the institution. Critical thinking is kept to the minimum because it slows things down in already overcrowded classrooms. It takes a lot of time. If teachers had about half the amount of students that they have, it would be much easier for them to take the time to teach the children how to compare and contrast. Aside from this, quote, the present education system, just like our basic way of understanding and knowing, is profoundly decontextualized. Some schools are not overcrowded, and in some classrooms, critical thinking is taught. But any teacher who teaches his or her students to think critically has to work extra hard to get it accomplished in a system that doesn't foster it. In the latter years, when teachers try to get people who have not learned creative critical thinking to do it, they also run into a brick wall. It is often easier to parrot back than it is to compare, contrast, think, and create, especially when one has been raised on television, where everything is created for her or him. People often get angry when they are forced to question and think for the first time. National tests also measure knowledge, not critical thinking ability. Most problems in the schools today come because we are working with an education model formed during the Industrial Revolution that was based on a dominator model of thinking according to from power to partnership. People were taught to function enough to either perpetuate the system or to work in factory jobs 12 or 13 hours a day without questioning. Now, however, that is not what is needed. The new jobs are high tech. They need people who are imaginative and creative to design new systems. They need people who will question. They need people who are leaders unto themselves instead of followers of the strong man. They need individuals whose freedom makes them not lazy, but responsible for a larger cause and not for just themselves. They need whole human beings who can work with each other. Quote, today's jobs require better teamwork, more cooperative behavior, of stronger interpersonal communication skills. But the education system still favors either or antagonistic debate, for example, as a way of displaying one's learning, rather than model pro-social behavior, where two people are engaged in learning together. Either I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. End of quote. This paradigm is no longer suitable for the advancement of knowledge and creativity. We need new ways of thinking and learning in order to find new paradigms. We need continual learning. We need to fulfill the global universal dream instead of only the American dream, because the American dream for many doesn't work and hasn't worked. School does not end at 12th grade now, nor does it end with a degree. School goes on and on for those who want to be whole human beings. If we leave ourselves open to learning opportunities, schools go on forever, and we learn to compare and contrast. We learn about our own truths and how we might arrive at the truth. When I speak of truth, I am basically talking about the way the universe is and our relation to that universe. I'm talking about the fact that the universe is active and still in the process of creating and being created with a purpose beyond human understanding. Looking back to the past often reminds us of the relationships between a cause that takes place in the cosmos and a reaction, which is often some form of creativity. On the earth, the reaction has often resulted in more complex or adaptable forms of life and the extinction of others. Since this was the case in the past, it is logical to deduce that the actions of the universe in the present are also facilitating the creation of more adaptable forms of organisms, whether accidentally or on purpose, or given identity as humans who are separate from the universe do not allow us to see the universe as a thinking entity. When we let go of our anthropomorphism, however, we can easily realize that the universe is not just several dead particles randomly bouncing off of each other. We are part of that universe and should be living in union with it. We need to constantly learn about truth because knowledge is always increasing and theories are constantly changing. Ideas that we believed, theories that we took for granted, are now becoming obsolete, and a whole new world of thought and perception is being opened to us. If we don't learn about these new things and come to understand them, we will shut down our minds and close our hearts to them. And any system, theorists can tell us, when a system closes itself off to new ideas and thoughts coming in and going out, it ceases to be a healthy system and begins to become stagnant. Each individual is a system of cells. It is important, therefore, to continue to learn new ways of thinking so that we don't become a hindrance to cultural evolution. It is also important so that we can live life more fully and enjoy the thrill of looking at the universe in a very new way. Things have been changing in the areas of science and religion. I remember learning about the atom when I was young. It all seemed so simple. At the time, they said that the electron was the smallest particle of matter. Since physicists have found all kinds of particles like neutrinos and quakers, we find it was inaccurate. Scientists have discovered many new things which the Newtonian form of physics cannot explain. It is reported that over 90% of the universe is made of dark matter that is invisible and is not a vacuum. Scientists have discovered more about energy and thoughts. Researchers have found that just giving love and receiving it is actually something that energizes a person, and they have measured and recorded the changes. They have found that a smile can energize people. They have found that most of those things that were understood to be religious, superstition, actually have more validity. I'm not talking about religious people who have become scientific to prove that religious beliefs were true, discovering these things. I'm talking about scientists. With new methods of investigation, they are beginning to find that we are all living in a context from which we cannot be separate. They are finding that reductionism, or taking things apart to fully understand the parts, does not explain the whole. The whole is an entity unto itself. They are discovering that we, as human beings, are part of the whole and can only be understood in the context of the process of the unfolding of the universe. We are not separate beings waiting to become gods. We are part of the universe and part of this earth that is still in the process of being created. Every species in the past has had to adapt to the environment in a way that made it capable of surviving. Our human intellect is merely an adaptation made by our species that allows us to survive, just as every other being contributes to the health, well-being, and balance of the planet by its unique abilities and activities. It is our duty as human beings to do the same. Instead, we are now in the process of destroying it. It is time for us to learn again. We have to learn about reality instead of the myth of humanity. Quote, the idea of man being created in the image of God in Genesis, and that he is at the top of the hierarchy on earth, as in Psalms from the Hebrew Scriptures, is so deeply woven into the fabric of our lives that it has even been carried over into science, humanism, and atheism. Animals don't have souls according to them. The earth is a dead rock. The more like the species are like us, the more worth they have, and the more intelligent they are. These are beliefs that are passed on to us as the paradigm of our society. They are our cultural memes. We know them to be true without having to ask questions, only because we have not learned how. It is now time to question these paradigms, because our belief in them has contributed to things like racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and the abuse of animals, and the extinction of 10,000 species of life every year, which is increasing. The only salvation for humanity on this earth now, I think, is freedom of the mind. It is the freedom to think clearly and to ask questions. It is the freedom to discuss, not in a challenging, competitive sort of way, but as one would discuss differences of opinion with a close friend or loved one in order to arrive at the truth. We must relearn our view of the world outside of the ideas that have been shaped by the consumerism of the 1900s. By the time a child is ready to go to school, he or she has already been shaped by the consumer culture. The child has usually seen 30 to 40,000 commercials by the age of 3 or 4 and has learned what our culture really is about. In our culture, the elders or religious institutions used to pass on cultural values to the child. This is not the case today in our culture. Commercials and TVs go straight into the subconscious of our children and become the blueprint for every understanding that they will have about life. They teach the child that the earth and the universe is a mass of dead matter, and the success consists of destroying it, reshaping it, and obtaining as much of it as we can in our lifetimes. Just think about the commercials that are showed to our unguarded children and what the messages are behind them. The commercials say that you will be happy if you have the latest car. A house like this is what is normal. You should have one. This is what the normal person looks like. If you don't look like this, you are not normal. It teaches us that happiness means consuming goods. Later, as a child, and the child grows, we try to teach him or her about things that have real meaning in life. The commercials, however, have already shaped the thought process. We find ourselves fighting against a deeply implanted belief system. The consumer system slowly becomes what is known as the memes, or the genetic blueprint for human culture. Instead of our culture developing toward being a loving, caring community, it develops to be a consumering community. It is time for us to learn to look at the world in a different way. It is time for us to relearn. It is not painful to relearn. Learning anew can be scary, but it does not destroy the mind. It does not destroy our workplaces or our way of life. It enhances them. It enlarges our minds and our thought processes and helps us become leaders and guides when it comes to leading this culture forward in the cultural evolution we are engaged in, instead of being fearful and standing in the way. Today, our consumerism takes the place of religion that in the past have played a crucial role in producing higher levels of altruistic behavior in humans, as they have evolved from apes to persons capable of cooperation in complex, interdependent, advanced urban societies, according to Don Browning. Don Browning writes, religion stimulates cultural adaptations and evolution. It constitutes the controlling values at the top of the hierarchy of cultural values, guiding humans and human adaptation towards progress. Unquote. Now, learning and destruction of the consumer mentality empowers us. It helps us shape the future. It helps us co-create a future that is kinder, gentler, more humane, and more honest, and helps us to be honest, living, breathing examples for our children and the coming generations. We learn many new things. We learn about time and space in new ways. We learn that one type of science doesn't explain everything. We learn that there are several different ways of seeing the truth, and we learn about growth. We learn about true growth. True growth and expansion of the self comes when we learn about other people and cultures, and when we learn to love. As we love, we begin to empathize. We begin to feel the other's pains and joys, and to really communicate. We begin to see the world through the other's eyes. We get a better view of the world, and we become more able to live with integrity. We move to align our lives with reality instead of living a lie. In the past, many sought to expand the self by expanding their control. They conquered people and didn't allow for any differences. They then had power over others, yes, but they remained a small, closed, lonely system that was dying on the inside. They always had the need to reach outward to satisfy the self. Conquering to expand oneself is futile. It is the old way that leads nowhere, except to eternal hunger. Let us do it a new way, the real way, that is called love, is what fulfills our need as a society and as individuals. Ralph Burrow spoke of love as altruism. He said that first there was a genetic altruism that allowed different collections of molecules, one-celled species, chemicals, materials, and single-celled species to bind together and survive in harmony. He referred to the central reference of these species as genotypes. Next, several one-celled species allowed themselves to combine and become organisms. It was the altruism, or love between each of those species, that aided in these formations. These were the phenotypes, or expressions in the physical world of the genetic expression of multi-celled organisms. The third step Burrow referred to was the culture type. This took place when the altruism between several like organisms, especially human beings, formed groups or cultures. The next step, according to Burrow, is the ecotype. In the ecotype, every species, especially the human, realizes that they are one ecosystem. They realize that the planet is a living system and that they must work in union with the earth and every living thing to maintain the health and balance of the whole system. Most other species do this automatically. This praxis would be similar to what is referred to as an ecozoic era in the universe story. Finally, Burrow arrives at the cosmotype. We realize that we are part of the whole cosmos. We learn that we must live together in harmony with everything in the whole cosmos, and we must form an altruistic bond with the whole cosmos. Burrow reminds us that any organism or species that competed within itself was ultimately destroyed. Any species that cooperated led to the whole species flourishing. Is there any wonder in an age moving toward an ecozoic era that we human beings who are not in coordination with the rest of the ecosystem may soon become extinct? That is the ending of the FYI. This is section TME, this month's exercises. Your exercise for this month is to think about what you have read again. Allow it to soak into your unconscious. Meditate on some of the parts that you read each night the same way you did with the last part you read. Do this with one section or one idea per night until you're getting the same answer over and over again and feeling comfortable with it. Write down the answers. Immediately afterwards, sit in a comfortable position in a chair or legs crossed on the floor and do the same meditation again as before. You may listen to some soothing music if you would like. Do this for 15 minutes. Do the meditation before you go to bed. If you have been doing the meditation for a month, it may not seem as boring as before. Your mind and body may be getting used to it and experiencing it as a time of rest. If not, persevere until it happens. When you awaken in the morning, stand, if you are able, with your hands hanging at your sides, shoulders relaxed, and your feet apart about shoulders width. Breathe in deeply and very low again. Like the other meditation, keep your eyes relaxed on a spot far off in the distance. Try to clear the inner dialogue from your mind. As thoughts rise up, examine them, see what they're saying, and then let them go. Feel your body. Is there tension anywhere? Can you feel where one shoulder or one hip is higher or lower than the other? Pay attention to your body and how it feels. Just to stand there. Allow your body to adjust itself as you stand there. The body is self-adjusting. As you become aware of tensions or maladjusted parts of your body wants to realign itself. Allow this to happen. Experience how it feels just to stand with your feet planted firmly, shoulders back and head held high. If you cannot do this in a standing position, with your shoulders back, head up, and your back straight, do it in a sitting position. The warrior must learn how to stand for her or himself with his or her feet deeply planted in the earth and his or her head held high into the heavens. The warrior is the bridge between heaven and earth. Think on these things and remember the feelings that you have while you are doing them. Write them down, and also write down any other questions that you may have. Next chapter we will look at some more of the philosophy behind the WOCG. We will review the total pyramid of identity formation used in the Western society, and will explain what is at the top. God, the God of the West, and God and Goddess images in more depth. So thank you for being with us for this Warrior of Compassion Guild. And if you feel the need, please join our Patreon here and help support us so that we can continue to reach out to other people. These are hard times. We are living in a time where people are using fear and suffering to stop us from growing, to destroy any type of growth and evolution in the human species. We're living when people are trying to go backwards and force us to go backwards and punish us if we don't. In order to be free, we must stand strong and be willing to stand against the mental and spiritual manipulation being used by people who don't really love or care about anyone today. Welcome to the Warrior of Compassion Guild. Please become a supporting member and look forward to our live videos on YouTube once a month. Namaste, everyone.